G'day guys, it's Liam here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most hard-working components in your whole four-wheel drive, shock absorbers. So let's paint a picture. You're traveling in outback Australia on some of the most corrugated roads known to man, and whilst you might not be thinking about it, your shocks are working as best they can to keep your car stable, your tyres planted, and your ride as smooth as possible despite the relentless terrain. While this is happening, your shocks are going to be heating up as they absorb kinetic energy and transfer it into heat. But this can only go on so long until your shocks begin to suffer from shock fade and you feel those corrugations rattle your car apart. So how can we combat this? Well, this little bit of kit right here is the answer, a remote reservoir shock. But hold on a second, what is a remote reservoir shock and why might you need it in your four-wheel drive? So let's start with the shock itself. Now this here is the Formula 4x4 F4R shock, and it's actually the same as the ones that I've been using in my Nissan Patrol. Now the unique thing about a remote reservoir shock like this one is that unlike a traditional monotube shock, this one has a remote reservoir which when combined with adjustable valving allows the flow of oil within the shock to be more precisely controlled. With this adjustable valving and remote reservoir, these shocks can absorb impacts and dissipate heat far more effectively. This reduces the risk of shock fade, making them ideal for corrugated roads or heavy off-road use. In turn, they'll also extend the lifespan of your vehicle's other components by reducing impacts and vibrations, especially on rough roads. These F4R shocks are also built with improved cavitation resistance, which is the formation of air bubbles in the damping oil, which affects the shock's ability to absorb impacts. This cavitation resistance will give much greater driving consistency on those rough corrugated roads. Now, when it comes to their construction, these F4Rs are built to last with a 22mm heavy-duty damper shaft and a shock body made from aviation-grade alloy, which is going to make sure they hold up to all the different bumps and knocks you'll encounter when going off-road. Being on the underside of your vehicle, your shocks are going to cop the brunt of anything you decide to push your 4x4 through, so having ones that can handle it all is crucial. Now, what takes these shocks to the next level is their adjustability. These F4Rs have 8 low-speed compression settings, 6 high-speed compression settings, and 12 stages of rebound adjustment. But why do you need to be able to adjust your shocks? Well, shock adjustments are useful not just for off-road applications, but also for a lot of on-road scenarios, whether that be handling, increased load carrying, or towing. When on the road, low-speed compression can be increased to make the car handle more responsibly, and the high-speed compression decreased to reduce the harshness of bumps or potholes. Let's say you're taking the van away for a trip. You can increase the low and high-speed compression of the rear shocks to help compensate for the extra tow ball weight. When you go off-road, you configure the shocks any way you like depending on the driving you're doing. You can dial back the compression for slow crawling on uneven terrain or increase the rebound for high-speed off-road driving. The options for adjustability with the F4Rs really are endless, and it allows you to set up your car for whatever terrain you throw at it. So I want to visually show you guys the adjustability of the F4R shock actually working, and to be doing that, we're going to be using a scale. So I've got the adjustability settings on the shock for the compression turned down to their lowest setting, and I'm going to place them on the scale and show you how quickly I can depress the shock.
Now keep an eye on the weight being shown on the scale.
Now I'm going to turn the compression all the way back up, and I'm going to do the same thing again, and you'll be able to see the difference in how the shock moves.
Oh, and that is a lot harder to compress.
And here you can see the extra weight needed to compress the shock.
So as you can see there, when I've got the compression turned all the way up, the valving makes it much harder for the oil to pass through and therefore much harder to compress. But how does what I've shown you here actually affect the handling of the car? Well, let me show you. Now I'm in the Patrol and I've got all the shocks turned down to their lowest compression setting, which is going to give me a softer ride but at the compromise of more body roll. So let's drive around a corner and see how the car handles. Oh, and I can definitely feel the car leaning over there. Now I'm going to turn the shocks up to their highest compression setting, which will be a little bit harsher ride, but the car should have much more stability around the corner. There you go, and straight away I can feel the car feels way more level around that corner.
When we compare it side by side, you can see there is much more body roll and much faster compression of the shock when it's on its lowest setting.
The F4Rs are suited to a wide range of cars no matter what you drive, whether that be a heavy solid axle four-wheel drive like ours or a modern dual cab with independent front suspension. In the case of an IFS vehicle, F4R front struts come with attached springs and are adjustable between 2 and 3 inches of lift, allowing you to set your ride height to your liking. For solid axle four-wheel drives just like mine, the F4Rs allow for increased suspension travel for 2 to 3 inches of lift, and if you're like my brother or I and have an 80 or 105 series or a GQ or GU Patrol, you can actually get F4Rs to suit a 3 to 4 inch lift kit as well. This can really give you that long suspension travel for extreme off-roading. And for those of you that are really serious about getting your suspension dialed in on your four-wheel drive, these F4R shocks are fully customizable and rebuildable. Now, as someone who's been lucky enough to use these shocks for over a year now, you might be wondering how I've used them to get the best driving experience from my four-wheel drive. So I'm using the 3 to 4 inch F4R shocks in my Patrol as I wanted the extended suspension travel and the ability to adjust the handling of my four-wheel drive as it changes. Now, my setup is designed to be modular so I can remove the rooftop tent and canopy separately and reconfigure my 4x4 depending on the driving I'm doing, whether that's camping or hard off-roading. This means that the weight of the car can change drastically at a moment's notice, and this is where the adjustability of the F4Rs really comes into play. When loaded up with my full canopy and rooftop tent setup, I turned up the low-speed compression to combat body roll and make the car handle more responsibly on the road. Then when I ditch all the weight and go to a bare tray for hard four-wheel driving, I can dial the compression right back so that the car doesn't ride harshly and the suspension can move freely when off-road. This keeps the car driving comfortably no matter the conditions I'm in. Now you might be asking, Liam, is it really worth investing in remote reservoir shocks? And the answer really depends on how you use your vehicle. If you're someone who changes their payloads frequently, does a lot of long journeys on demanding off-road terrain, or you're just seeking the ultimate driving experience, these F4R shocks are the best way to do so. So there's a quick overview on the Formula 4x4 F4R shocks. Now, if you do want to learn more or you're thinking about getting a set for your own four-wheel drive, head over to fulcrumsuspensions.com.au or leave a comment below with any questions you may have. So thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.